listening to the Retail Razor Show, where your expert hosts and their guests cut through the clutter in retail and retail tech to shape the future of retail.
Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 9 of the Retail Razor Show. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
And I'm your co-host, Casey Golden. Welcome to Retail's favorite podcast, where we cut through the clutter to give you sharp insights on the retail industry, commerce technology, and the human connection. It's the show for customer experience leaders, marketing executives, store operation leaders, and everyone else in retail and retail tech alike.
And this is an episode fans have been waiting for since, I think Season 2, Episode 2. So really over 2 years in the making.
Wow. Has it really been that long? I can't even, it's like the end of the year. Of course, we are talking about a very special part of our show, the original Retail Avengers team from back in our Clubhouse days. Like we were OGs.
Yeah. Does anyone even remember Clubhouse these days? It feels so 2020, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Oh, the social media dramas of our generation.
Yeah.
Well, we have finally done it. We have brought the team back together for a reunion episode. And actually, we've got quite the special topic for this one.
We do. This was actually a topic I think we touched on more than once in our weekly Clubhouse sessions back in the day. But we never managed to make this one of the recorded sessions that found their way into the podcast.
It's very true. So for our special reunion episode, we're talking about the future of department stores. Specifically, we're asking the question, what is wrong with department stores and how can they be fixed? Strong opinion. Then again, we're also asking, why can't department store leaders get this right?
Yeah, that we are. It's definitely part of it. And in this age of AI and retail media and re-emphasizing the human connection in stores, which of course are our three themes for the show, how is it that department stores keep getting it wrong?
Not just wrong, I mean, so very wrong, as if we're completely out of touch with why we got into retail in the first place, what it's supposed to be. Let's face it, how did these stores go from being the shopping destination for fashion to being, okay, I guess I'll have to go there, dealing with like most customers?
Yeah, I can't wait to get into this discussion with the group on this one. I'm sure this will go down as one of our best episodes yet. I know I don't often say that.
Oh, Ricardo, really? You always say that. For every episode. I mean, sometimes I think the only reason you don't say it is because you might forget to say it.
Well, maybe it's just that some episodes are really more than meets the eye.
No, like you have been banned. You're not allowed to use that phrase anymore, Ricardo.
I can't get a break, can I?
Not around me. Oh, let's just get to the conversation already.
Yes, but before we do that, I want to give a quick reminder to all our listeners to please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Good Pods if you like our show and this episode. In fact, you might not know this, but it turns out that there is no limit to the number of 5-star ratings a podcast can have.
Is that so? Somehow I suspected that would be true.
Yes. And even more shocking, you might find this hard to believe, there's no limit to the number of reviews your podcast can have either.
This is even less surprising to me. However, it is one of the hardest things for anyone to do. So please, leave us a review.
All the more reason, that's right, for listeners to rush out and send in those ratings and reviews. It really helps us out.
And don't forget YouTube viewers.
I could never forget our fabulous YouTube viewers. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel.
All right, so now we can just get to the conversation with our Retail Avengers.
I thought you'd never ask. This is such a special treat that our audience has been waiting for, about 2 years now, I think?
Yes, it is. Welcome to our fellow Retail Avengers family. So good to have you all back with us again.
And since it's been a while, I think it's a good idea for us to do a quick round of introductions. Brandon, let's start with you.
Yeah, Brandon Rael, been around retail my entire career, passionate about all things retail, consumer, customer experience. Been in the industry. I know everything from merchandising to supply chain and I think the last 2/3 of my career I've been on the consulting strategy and transformation space, and just love talking about all things retail and digital and just the evolution of the shopping experience. So great to reconnect with my fellow Clubhouse warriors and Avengers. So back to you.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Shish?
It's great to be back. Thank you for putting this together. And I'm Shish. I work in the intersection of startups and retailers. So I work with plenty of innovative startups that are doing amazing things in retail. I get to spend time with retailers really understanding what they're looking for in terms of innovation and emerging tech and all of that. I'm part of Microsoft for Startups. I've been in Microsoft for 27 years and been working with retail for over 20.
All right. And of course, the legend himself, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. Jeff Roster, spent about 20 years at Gartner covering retail, spending the last part of my career now at Third Eye Advisory doing work in the retail world and the startup community, and now transitioning and doing a lot more work with philanthropy. So doing homeless stuff, and which hence the beard, and a lot of stuff now with adoption and foster care in the Bay Area.
Amazing.
All right.
Amazing.
Awesome. I see.
Well, it is always a treat when we have the whole team together. I do recommend tracking every single one of these guys down and following them. They have so much to contribute. So now that we've got some of these intros out of the way, let's dive into our topic for today. Department stores. What's the deal? Why can't they just get it right?
Yeah, exactly. We could look at this from so many perspectives, I think. I particularly love to get everyone's thoughts, not just on what's going wrong with department stores today, but let's focus on what they could be doing maybe to fix the problems, to get customers back to enjoying the department store experience. And honestly, why even when they do try new things, and we all often talk about those new experimental things they're doing, it doesn't seem to work out. So for example, on the show this season, we've been focusing on 3 topics around AI, retail media, and the human connection in retail. And I think all 3 of these could have such key factors in department stores to make them better. So I would love to get everyone's take to kick us off on where do you think department stores stand in each of these 3 areas, and what's going wrong?
I can kick you off. I think for historical purposes, department stores were once the center of our shopping universe. You know, I think, and the generation we grew up in, it was the destination to go to for everything we needed for throughout our lifetimes. And whether it was back to school or it was shopping, holiday shopping season, or whatever it was always a reason to go to a department store and have access to all the products and all the experiences. And back in the day, there was better assortments and the merchandising strategies and execution at the store level. And it's, it was the place to go. Right? And I think clearly the digital revolution and the emergence of ecommerce and Amazon and Target and all the countless other factors that have happened have really changed just consumer behaviors, I think, irreversibly. And I think department stores were going through this expansion and consolidation strategy at the same time. Mm-hmm. And what we see in the inner cities like New York City, that kind of experience that never translated out across the scale of the US, for example, where there were so many missteps with merchandising, with pricing, with products, with assortments, with just customer service experience that people would eventually realize, I don't need to go here anymore. I'd rather go to a Target or a Walmart or Amazon as my default place to shop, and then quickly deciding not to go back. And there hasn't been a compelling reason to go back. And we're seeing Nordstrom's take step to try to make department stores more experiential. They had a cafe there, a martini bar, more personalized services. I think that like the Selfridges model from back in the day, that try to attract consumers and try to layer in luxury. And I think all the stores that were in the store that make the department store magical have their own stores in the malls too. Why would you go to the Louis Vuitton section in New Markets or Nordstrom's when they have a Louis Vuitton in the mall? You can talk about AI and retail media and customer experience. I think that's fundamentally the issue. How do you attract and retain your consumers, but also Gen Z and Gen Alpha? They haven't grown up in a world where department stores are relevant. And I think how do you attract them will be the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good point just to kind of note that for the last, 50 years, we've called them bottom doors. And maybe they've gotten the attention of a bottom door rather than maybe we should be thinking about them as like opportunity doors.
Yeah. Well, I will
We'll
say,
get all the resources.
yeah. And I think to that point, and some of the things that I picked up on what Brandon said, I must be in the wrong geography because my Nordstrom doesn't have that martini bar, and I'd really look out for that one and check that out. I must be in the wrong geography or the wrong state.
Yeah.
It's a new mall by me.
Exactly.
Just be very careful with martinis.
Yeah.
Very careful.
That's one way to increase
It was
your
interesting.
conversion
I just moved to one of the newest Salesforce account executives in San Francisco to a new apartment, a yay daughter. And of course, because she basically, when she got laid off and gave all her stuff away, had to basically repurpose an entire apartment, which meant almost everything. So guess where we went?
IKEA.
Yeah, so we moved. Yeah, well, close. That was my nightmare. That would have been my nightmare.
Crate and barrel?
No. It was in San Francisco, so we went to Target. We drove right by Macy's, which is in theory a department store, which would have a lot of the things in theory that she might have wanted. But no, we actually went further to get to, and same amount of parking as far as ease or whatever. Went to Target. So there's a 27-year-old, top of the game, doing well financially, and she's choosing to go to Target to basically get almost everything in her apartment. That answers everything you need. And the other thing, and Casey, this is better probably for you, but I don't know that professional women need to go to high-end clothing stores the way they used to. I think they can do a lot of different things with a lot better price point, and that's a problem, I would say.
Yeah. When it comes to clothing, I have different opinions. When it comes to home goods, I'm all different.
Casey might not be the best example for that question.
Gen Z. Gen Z.
Not millennials. Yeah.
I'm not convinced
Gen Z.
Gen Z has any taste to start with.
Okay. Well, then you did answer the question. So that's the challenge.
And I don't believe that 80% of people should be doing their shopping themselves anyway. So I'm over here where there are professionals for this. We shouldn't have everybody dressed for themselves.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that one point,
I think
Casey.
that there is something to be said about what does seem to remain true is shopping is the act of gathering. We like to gather and go get things and put them in our cart and fill our virtual carts. We like the aspect that shopping is gathering.
Yes.
And when you get rid of a lot of that friction, as a lot of people say, that's the part we like.
Yes.
Some of that friction is our fun moment. And so when a physical store offers an opportunity to gather, like a Target, you get lots of different opportunities of different products. You can get different rooms, things like that. Home goods in general and everything that has to do with a home is so much fun to gather for, regardless of price. Gathering for a cashmere sweater that actually fits and is not going to pill, that's not as fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to a brand that is not going to sell me junk, and I'm going to look at maybe 4 brands, and I'm going to pick from them.
So you just highlighted, I think, a number of things I'm going to summarize a little differently. One is the keyword there was shopping versus buying, right? It was a shopping experience that you described, but it also implied that the destination you're talking about shopping at has known or the potential for known brands that you have some inclination of liking already, or you wouldn't go there to shop, right? So that says that the curation is key of what's available.
Target has taste.
Yeah, right.
I do have to say.
Yeah. So then again, it comes back to so why can't a lot of the department stores get that equation that you just spelled out right? Because if they were getting it right, more people would be shopping there, right?
So part of what I see there is really I'm usually looking at it from a technology perspective and looking at all the startups, trying to figure out what is it that we need to solve. And some of the things that it really bubbled up for me was, how do you make it more experiential? How do you make it more personal and curated? And technology can play a part there. And I think that's one element where, when you're looking at what is it, can we go into a department store and not really find anything? And that's because the curation, the inventory, the assortment is just not set up right. But if there was an element of data being used to know who the customers are And I think knowing the customer is an important element, and that's where the data and AI element comes in. And I think that's one element at least of how can we reignite that experience.
Yeah.
I'll double down with what Shish is saying. I mean, work we do at Kyndryl is all about monetizing, optimizing the value of data. And there's millions and billions of lines of data that retailers, especially department stores, are not capitalizing on and not optimizing their supply chains and not enhancing their assortments. They're not being proactive. They're being very reactive. And it's really led to just poor execution at the store level and just challenges with assortments and quality of products. And the right friction is always good. I totally agree with you, Casey. You want friction. You want that part of the experience. Everything seems to be so seamless. Like buy my hit from the store, walk out the store, don't actually engage or don't have an adventure in the store. But department stores, more often than not, are just falling flat in terms of in-store experiences, having the right products, the right price points, the right collections. And they're not monetizing the value of the data. They're not integrating technology in the way they should, or leveraging AI to be far more proactive and prescriptive with their strategies. We're living in a world today where TikTok is their main source of information for Gen Z or Gen Alpha, and they're looking for trends and looking for immediacy, immediate satisfaction. And the Temus and all those others in the world have that model. They can react so quickly and change their trends and styles, where department stores are still on that 12-month product development cycle, merchandising cycle, and the trends change so much quickly today.
I think we used to be focused on edits and a very distinct brand's point of view, much more focused on UPTs. And with the rise of e-commerce being so digital ad driven, it's all about selling one piece. That's primarily been the main focus, is let me get you in through this and get you out the door quick, rather than operating a little bit more like the casino. I'm going to keep you here going in circles, picking up stuff like next 30 minutes, and you're going to leave the higher cart. That takes planning, takes merchandise planning, assortment planning, really knowing who your customer is, why they're shopping with you. And I think we have the most information, especially for department stores. They're sitting on so much customer data on their tastes, their shopping behavior across brands, across assortments. Are they buying perfume and skincare at the same time? Are they buying clothes? Is it a treat, or is it fall season changes? To whether or not your daughter walking into that Target buying things for a living room, kitchen, spoons, picture frames, lamps. If you look at her data, boom, new person just moved here, new customer to cultivate. They obviously live nearby, because I'm not going to be carrying all that stuff or driving too far, right?
Or wait until dad comes up visiting.
Right?
But your point is valid. It would be interesting. I would love to know if Target figured that out from her. For her
and also good frictions. The word that comes to me is gamification and engagement. So gamification is a big element of that as well. How do we keep them engaged? And the casino experience is another one. How do you keep them in there engaged?
Yeah.
So let's look at it also a different way. So when we've been saying department stores, but the fact is, right, there are different, let's say, levels or tiers of department stores, right? We've got high-end luxury department stores like a Neiman's or a Saks, right, where Casey likes to live. Then we've got on the low end, what has become the low end discounted side, which I'm going to say is like JCPenney, Kohl's. And then there's the middle ground, which is, I think, squarely where Macy's is. And in my mind, in some ways, there's a little bit of an outlier like Nordstrom that I think is not quite in the luxury tier as a Neiman's or Saks, but is a notch above Macy's. And they're probably more of that, I don't know, let's call it an aspirational luxury side, because they have plenty of high-end merchandise, but I wouldn't say they're at the same luxury level as a Neiman. So maybe I'm adding a fourth category. And then there's lots of other regional department stores I'm not naming that sort of fit within those levels. So if we think about those tiers, there's obvious reasons, I think, to say the middle is in trouble for those, right? Because they can't find an identity. Like every other retailer, you have to have a why reason for why people should come to your store. The low end ones, in theory, their why is it's cheaper, right? It's discounted, it's value. Although I would argue that they're also, again, kind of shooting themselves in the foot, and maybe in other places too, but with that model, because they're just a race to the bottom and everybody sort of sees them that way. The luxury ones, they're looking for a different kind of consumer. So maybe you can set them aside. The reason I distinguish here is because one of the things that many people, and I think some of us have said in the past too, as a differentiator is what kind of service do you give to your customer? Are you just a place where there's a bunch of products, or is there more than the product to the experience? And I think it's in many ways easier for those luxury stores to offer that kind of service level. A little harder in that middle tier and almost non-existent but you could lean on technology to compensate on that discount side. So if we look at it through that lens, where do we think any of these stores are? Because we could make this argument about, all right, let's look at everybody's last quarterly results and see where they all are landing. And that would tell us a lot in each of these categories.
Yeah, I think starting the luxury, I think they have their own distinct operating model, but I also think that luxury powerhouses like LVMH and Richemont, they've opened their own store to double down their physical stores. And their stores are far better than a store within a store concept that Neiman offers or Saks Fifth offers. The breadth and depth of assortments is better. Louis Vuitton or Chanel, et cetera. They have the sales associates who are well compensated and knowledgeable and can provide great experiences. Their online presence has improved. So we argue that what distinguishes the upper end department store versus these luxury powerhouses that are doubling down on physical stores and offering far more products. So they have their own set of challenges because they're kind of in this stratosphere. The middle is countless challenges, and I think they're balancing a gap between aspirational luxury but also affordability, which is a hard place to play because it's a completely different customer segment. And they're also on the fringes of competing with Kohl's and Macy's, also competing with TJ Maxx and Marshalls and Target for that matter for a core customer. So I think there's so many different factors at play there. I think the operational challenges we talked about earlier, but the lack of leveraging technology and AI capabilities and data has also been challenging. But also Macy's problems stem back to 15, 20 years ago with that mass consolidation through Federated to renaming all these regional powerhouses to Macy's and try to and really commoditize themselves as a brand and never really recovered from that time point. I mean, they speak about all the things they're looking to do in terms of layering technology in, being customer centric and driving loyalty programs and leveraging AI, but we're just not seeing that. I mean, they have their top 50 stores that they're positioning, they're doing relatively well, but the rest of the chain is still underperforming pretty significantly. They're probably the poster child of what's wrong with department stores and what they're trying to do aspirationally to get better. And in some ways, Tony Spring and team are doing the right things, but it's taking some time to get there.
Yeah, I think that design is the biggest competitive advantage anybody has right now, whether or not it's your department store's private label, your assortment, the brands that you carry. And I think that using AI and leveraging this technology and data to be able to find how much you can differentiate your product to create something that doesn't look the same. Because I feel like that we have this monoculture of all of these products where it's the same product across 50 vendors. And it's the exact same product at different prices. I think it's right now, departments, it's pretty much Timo and Shein against the world, while luxury's over here doing its thing and staying out of it. But all the products look the same. And I think we could really figure out using that data and using AI on how can we bring design aesthetics to differentiate lines of products that are not this monoculture, to be able to afford to make them at a decent price. Because usually design aesthetics up means price goes up. But I think we have the technology and tools to figure that out.
One thing I'll say about the middle tier specifically is the low tier is clearly on pricing. So there is the focus on pricing and luxury is a completely different audience. But the middle, I think, has got a real advantage there where they can focus on very specific things like customer experience. They can focus on very specific things like targeted audiences where they can identify. I think what the middle sometimes misses is that targeted marketing and finding the segments that's right for them and then only going for that. And then there's other elements like, for example, being more sustainable, which the lower tier can't quite handle. And I think that's where there's certain advantages the middle can zero in on.
That's a great place for the middle to be at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the way to differentiate from the middle is driving loyalty and a sense of community, sense of gathering. Why would I want to engage with the Macy's? Why would I want to go to their stores? Why would I engage them online? And Macy's have determined ways to attract this audience. So loyalty programs shouldn't need to be transactional based, but there should be gamification. There should be a sense of community. There should be some sense of exclusivity, events that you can't get anywhere else. Come to pop-up shop within a Macy's, maybe even in the suburbs, limited time offers, exclusive events. These are things that would definitely attract people to the mall. The mall culture is not dead in the mall. I mean, we see teenagers, especially going to Sephora and Brandy Melville. I mean, there's plenty of stores that are thriving. You have to figure out a way to get this next generation to a Macy's, for example, and to make them a hot, trendy brand that people want to go hang out and spend time with, and maybe buy some products.
How do you guys feel about prices potentially going up and things at the mid and lower tier price points that have been so attractive? Are we getting as much bang for our buck if there's a 25% or 30% increase in price? I wonder how the consumers are going to react to maybe spending a little bit more money to go up to mid-market, mid-brands, because maybe their perceived value might be higher.
Or at the same time, do they have to do something else to entice you to shop there that adds to the value other than the product itself, right?
Other than the product.
That helps justify whatever the price is.
What's funny about that, Casey, is I just think about gas. So when gas is $1.20 a gallon or $1.30, which it once was, 20 cents different to go to a little fancier gas station was you couldn't do it. When it's $4.50, which it is now in California, the difference, that 20 or 30 or 40 cents difference is not, you don't even think about it. So there is something to be said as everything goes up, that perceived delta becomes maybe less perceived,
right?
Or it is less. I mean, that's actually kind of interesting. I wonder if that's a phenomenon we'll see.
Yeah, I think if you associate price increases, I mean, there will be always price increases, whether it's inflation or other economic factors with tariffs. The cost is usually extended to the customer, but if there is a perception built around, okay, you're getting better quality, better brands, better assortments, and that value is there for the customer, they'll be willing to spend the money, willing to engage your brand. So it's, Sephora's done really well with that. Lululemon 2 years ago is skyrocketing with teenage girls because they're the hottest brand on the planet back then. And they still are, but their typical yoga pants is priced well above what you can get in other places. And I think they just had magic in the bottle. So if you have the right experience, the right product, the right service, the right brand equity, people pay for your products. It will show up.
Or the right ransom. I just made a ridiculous purchase at Sephora because it's birthday month. So I need to buy something to get my birthday present.
Yeah.
And I have to maintain my key level for 2025 by hitting my spend this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. So you had to do it. You had to.
You did
to refresh.
But you did it. So what's interesting, the last half dozen branded examples, everyone is just given, not one of them was a department store.
No.
It's sad, but true.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
You've listed the differences in loyalty programs, ways that you were incentivized to buy more, right? And but not at a department store where you could have bought all these same things.
Granted, I mean, I think though, what is a department store versus what is a multi-brand retailer? I consider a multi-brand retailer and a department store to essentially be the same.
They are, by definition, they're the same.
Because I don't, I don't have access to a true department store really anymore.
Would you categorize Target's essentially a department store, a multi-brand retailer. So
right, but
Walmart.
They work. I'm not going all the way out there to a Target. I won't even go to Costco. I'm not taking 3 trains or a $130 Uber. Costco.
This is why everyone should live in suburbia, because we don't have that.
I can't even go to Home Goods because how am I going to get all of this stuff? Whoa. I need to borrow a friend with a car or ride with a stranger, right? But a lot of these are a Sephora, I can say, is kind of a department store. Just for beauty. I get lots of stuff other than just makeup. But the marketplaces I feel have blurred the line.
Yeah.
The marketplaces online have kind of started to blur that line where when am I walking into a true department store? Who are they?
Yeah.
what would we say are our best purely traditional department store model? Who is that today?
I tend to go to Nordstrom's, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm going to a department store versus a Macy's.
So if you ask
seem to
Nordstrom, they'd say
execute.
they're not a department store, right? They don't like being labeled a department store.
Well, I mean, I don't like being labeled a 60-plus-year-old man. I am. So I don't care what you want to be labeled.
You are, you're sure, exactly.
Well, I mean, so
I want to call myself a 30-year-old person in peak physical condition. I'm
You
not.
aspire to be
You are
that.
what you are by definition. So, and
Yeah,
maybe that's some of
exactly.
the problem too, to a great degree.
part of that argument, I think, is that what's a department in a department stores, right? To be a department store, you have to have departments. And you can make the argument, which I do often, that most department stores now have very few departments left that aren't apparel, right? With the exception of, you'll still see a home store, right? You'll still see housewares. Department stores long ago gave up on anything electronics related or appliance related, right?
Yeah.
Other than small appliances in the housewares department. So there are very few departments, right? And so Nordstrom, what does Nordstrom sell that's not apparel?
Perfume, makeup,
Cosmetics is
perfume,
probably the
makeup.
only other
Yeah.
department, right?
yeah, handbags, shoes.
Do they do furniture anymore? I don't think they do.
I don't think so. No.
Macy's
no.
is still doing some
Yeah.
furniture.
Yeah, Macy's still does furniture. Yeah.
They're bedding,
Yeah.
mattresses, and everything.
I got my
Yeah.
mattress when I moved to New York from Macy's.
There you go.
There
The
you
only
go.
place I did to not get bed bugs because I heard that was like a thing in New York. Like, well, Macy's wouldn't do that to me, right?
Boy,
Of course
You,
not. Not intentionally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do not sign
Okay,
Casey up
premium.
for the Welcome Center for New York City. We don't have those problems in suburbia. Also, another advantage of suburbia, we don't have those problems.
Yeah. So Jeff, you bring up a good point though. So I would say department stores have a different problem in cities versus the suburbs in
Right.
terms of both how you get customers in the door and then what the expectation is from that customer once they're in the door. And I think fundamentally, a lot of that is the mall, because in the suburbs,
Well,
as soon as you walk into the department store, every customer knows that the majority of things you're going to see there, you could find in the mall.
yes. I think there's the association with malls. There's a category called dead malls, which has had its peak in the 80s and 90s. And then these malls are just semi-functional. And they're so depending on the anchor department stores to keep them all alive. And then you see the thriving new malls that are more experiential, have new brands. They have like a Nordstrom's or Bloomingdale's and maybe Macy's that are more interesting. So I think you have to think categories of malls. I mean, those quote unquote dead malls, or department stores get bundled with that mess in terms of why would I go to the department store or a mall for that matter? The mall, my local mall is pretty much a dead place and no one have to go there anymore. And people rather go to downtown to main streets and go to boutiques and local merchants, or get everything online, or go through a Target, get everything I need. So they think that just continues to whittle away at the purpose of a department store in people's lives.
I think that one of the big opportunities for department stores is to truly partner with the brands that they work with. I find that it's very expensive for the brands to have a presence in a department store. It is extraordinarily expensive. You have to pay for a lease now. You have to pay a portion of the software, use their software. You don't get customer data. You have to give them very heavy margin agreements, a marketing budget, and you have to pay a portion of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it
And what
makes
do you get
sense.
in
Why
exchange?
brands are opening up their own, or I think we'll even see probably more brands go into more of a co-op model. I said this probably before, but I'm actually starting to see it now, where there's 6 brands coming together instead of a pop-up or opening up a store. They're just coming together, 6 of them, and sharing the resources and sharing the traffic.
There's, I kind of
And obtain their customer data and use their own technology.
Right. Well, in a sense, the department store should look at themselves as a marketplace. In the true sense of what we think of as a modern marketplace in the digital space, right? The department store really needs to translate that into their physical space, which is not the same model that they're used to, right? That's not the way they interact with brands. Like to your point, Casey, brands want data. They want customer data. So why aren't the department stores working well? I mean, department store, if they're doing well, then they would be getting a great source of customer data, because not only do they know who's buying Ralph Lauren, but they also know who's buying Nike, and they know if it's the same customer. Which if you just have, if you're just Ralph Lauren, you don't know what your customer buys outside of your brand ever.
It
right?
is the best
But
customer data.
if you work
there
with the
is.
department store knows this in theory, right?
Well, yes, There's so much that can capitalize on the power of data. Whether it's, I mean, why wouldn't they share, collaborate with their vendors, with the brands?
Yeah.
It's a win-win proposition.
Right.
And I think there's a price for brands to be in the store. The purpose of a department store back in the day was access, was scalability.
Yeah.
Was not having to open your physical brick and mortar stores. You can have a position in a Macy's, a Sears, JC, Lord and Taylor, et cetera. And that was your way to get to the market faster across the states, across the suburbs and the cities.
Yeah.
And now this digital marketplaces, they offer scalability, access, data, insight, personalization. That's definitely a missed opportunity or a growth opportunity for department stores as they
I think in some ways, department stores are still treating all these things as silos. So one of the things I said at the start is I mentioned retail media, which Jeff will laugh at me because I always bring that up. But I bring it up for department stores because let's face it, I mean, in my mind, department stores should be all of the top retail media networks, except maybe for Walmart and Amazon. They have the biggest opportunity. I think Macy's may be the only one that has in any way capitalized on that, but only in the sense that they're doing it better than everybody else, and everybody else is just so bad at it. But if they saw themselves as a marketplace, if they were the physical store version of an Amazon marketplace, they would do all the things Casey listed. They would use their retail media network, and that would be marketing investment with the brand. It would allow them to generate customer data they would share with the brand on purchases across brands. They would have the equivalent of ad placements. They could merchandise things, having all the products across brands rather than always building, what does every department store do? They build a brand island. You go into the Ralph Lauren section. You go into the Nike store. And everything is a store in a store.
That's
not how people shop. Right?
And
that to me sets themselves up to fail because if I go into the department store and I know I'm going to walk into a Nike shop in a shop, but I know there's a Nike store inside the mall. So how's that any different?
Yeah.
Right, from a consumer perspective.
Of data co-ops that there's a whole ecosystem that really benefits the brands and the department store. I've had this conversation about data co-ops in the past, and I think the biggest challenge has been the competitive aspect of it and the reason for not sharing data, all of that. But I think when you kind of look at the big picture on how do you now survive where the brands and the department stores benefit together, I think there is huge benefits in that data co-op.
Yeah.
If there's a commitment to just not email customers with the data, we could move mountains.
The huge opportunity for personalization, right? Cross-brand.
100%.
And if the department store would just see themselves less as the end purchase destination and more of that middleman, right? Which is what a marketplace is, right? Their marketplace is really a middleman. It's a platform for others to sell and others to buy. And they're facilitating that. I think that's the mindset change that would be, and then you can apply all these technology things that we're talking about, whether it's for personalization. And then the advantage to a brand is it's personalization across multiple brands, which is going to get a customer into the store.
Right.
I also see a compelling reason, but price increases. I think retailers and brands have now another challenge to deal with, which is how do you drive value? How do you justify the price? And they have to come up with a value proposition. And I think data does give them something as well.
Yeah, I think one example I want to point to is how challenging it is to go direct to consumer. These brands, even as powerful a force like a Nike, two or so years ago, decided to retract from Foot Locker. I know we're talking about department stores, but just the model in general, Foot Locker and JD Sports and others, and open up more physical stores and go brick and mortar and drive the customer experience, own the brand, own the identity. And they had the experience about 2 or 3 of the worst quarters ever as CEO change recently, and got recommitted to their wholesale retail model with Foot Locker and others again, because it's hard to scale. It's challenging to have an integrated supply chain. Retail is not an easy operation, and department stores have this platform. Make it worthwhile for these brands and these companies to collaborate and partner and have revenue sharing and data sharing, so you all can win. Retail is very challenging. It's hard for these brands to open their own stores, and so it's not an easy proposition.
I mean, I'm seeing when we kind of go back to like when I would think of like a department store or Walmart. When I think of Walmart, I think pallet in, pallet out, right? That's like my immediate go-to for Walmart. But I think we're seeing a lot more collaborations and more drops, which are very hard to manage on the supply chain side, but it's creating that excitement to go. And I think Love Shack Fancy just had so many customers upset that they didn't get a Stanley tumbler from the collab, right? Which I think is a huge opportunity to be happening in, like, Target did a lot of collaborations with designers where there are these exclusive drops, but it requires everybody to be able to turn on a dime. And it requires that technology to be stacked and ready to go to be able to deliver and to fulfill. And how much is too much? And be able to plan that demand to where it wasn't so little that everybody's upset that nobody got anything, but just that right amount of most people got something and it plays in their benefit for months after a drop. And I think department stores have a great opportunity to be very close with the brands that they carry and do more meaningful collaborations that are wrapped around like activation moments.
Target's been really successful with that in the past, right?
Totally. And what are the emerging force of social selling, live streaming, and how can department stores collaborate with the brands to do these live events? But it also requires data, insight, backend systems that are integrated, supply chains that are optimized to be able to get ready for that demand. If you have to do a live streaming with an exclusive product from Lululemon or wherever it may be, you better be ready with your backend systems to meet that surge of demand that will come
and I
through
think that
digital
comes
channel.
from moving it from a marketing and a PR, like a marketing moment or a PR stunt, to a sales strategy that is like throughout the year, season over season, this is how we're going to drive revenue. And we're running an ROI. We're running a P&L on every single one of these initiatives as a whole to invest in it. Because a lot of times when they're just led by marketing, there's no tech and there's no ROI requirement. There's a conversion rate requirement, but it's not something that anybody's matching or comping next year.
Yep. And that's why the marketplace model is so brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's integrated, whether it's Walmart's marketplace or Amazon's or Target. They just have it so optimized and it's a well-oiled machine, and they're ready for this demand.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at it as building on this marketplace idea, right? The department store should be the physical store version of an Amazon marketplace, plus adding on the potential of being the same kind of cross-brand, multi-brand, video-centric TikTok shop physical equivalent. I mean, a department store has the opportunity to combine all of these things. They could lead at retail in video commerce, because one of the ways I think that you really make video commerce and live streaming successful in a way that's different than how it is in China and the rest of Asia in the West is that you need multiple brands. Right? If you just do this based on one brand, I think it's much more difficult. And a department store has access. And because they also do a lot of private label, they can mix that in as well. And that gives them some uniqueness to it. So, and this is in a way is building audience for them, right? Why is TikTok successful? Because it builds an audience, right? It engages people. It entertains while you also, oh, by the way, can buy something. And why can't a department store leverage that model as well? They're the one place, I believe, in retail that could combine all of these different things that are uniquely successful in their silo, but they can bring them all together into one platform. And in a lot of ways, I think is that mindset of viewing yourself as a platform rather than as just a destination. And I think there's been too much focus on them thinking about the destination more so than what's the value of the platform for why people should buy from me.
The internet has become more exciting than real life. It's providing more relevant human connection. Even though you're still alone, you feel like you're with friends. We're getting consumers, I feel, are just getting more from the digital world to fill their cup, maybe fill their soul, be a part of something bigger, sharing stories. And when we walk into the real life and outside of our house, it's boring and you're by yourself, like for real.
Yeah.
Unless it's the experience. Experience
Less
is over
is the experience.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there has to be a little bit of a bridge that we've got to make real life more fun than online to be able to inspire those types of things. And I think that comes into leveraging into that human connection and what can even mid-tier or even discount stores do to provide that human connection, because sometimes it's your only outing. I know that I am in this silo in New York City in Little Miss Fancy Pants that likes all the bougie things. But, you know, my mom lives in the middle of nowhere. I grew up with a 1.5 mile driveway that I had to walk in the snow to get to the school. I'm not completely unrealistic.
God, that sounds amazing. I want a 1.5 mile driveway.
Not amazing. I just shoved my snowsuit into a plastic bag at the bottom of the mailbox. But my mom, she lives in the middle of nowhere and she has to drive an hour to get into the city, a town, forgive me, a town to purchase anything. And that might be she might go out like once a week, hit the Walmart, the vet, whatever it is. That's her only time away from the house. And so that is her human connection, in my opinion, where she's left. And these are bottom doors. This is mid-tier. This is low tier, right? Like these are the stores where that is the only maybe event or outing or human connection that some of these people are getting for the week. Why aren't we providing them more? It's a huge opportunity to provide them more. They want to talk to people. They want to shoot the shit. Like, give them that.
So when your mom goes to those retail experiences, I'm guessing the way you described it, those retailers probably know exactly who she is by name.
Some of them, what is it called? It's not the feed store for sure. Everybody knows her, but right? I can't think of what it's called. Is it called the feed store? I think it is called the feed store. But they sell lots of different stuff, right? And the feed store is like a department store.
Every town has a feed store for sure. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I'm over shopping for candles and crap, right? But when I go for Christmas or holiday or whatever, she wants to go into town and run errands. And it's like a whole event. I'm like, no, I don't want to go. I'm going to be in a car for an hour and then we're going to go to the feed store in Walmart.
See.
Oh, and what you're speaking to is like the American experience of 30, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, where there was an outing to go to a mall.
But it takes forever because she has a chatty Kathy. We got to
She's having an experience. She's having a human experience. By the way,
but that's the thing. It matters.
Yeah.
It matters a lot. Those sales associates, those people that work in those stores matter.
Yep.
And it is the experience, and it is that part of the experience. And so as much as I come from this whole other world, I am drug along for the other experience on a regular basis for that comparison where I want to be able to say, go out and do that and get a massage. And like, I don't have time for that. I'm like, well, if you didn't spend an hour and a half chatting with the person in the feed store, you could go get a 30-minute massage.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
Being able to cross collaborate, create more of those experiences. Maybe more of these brands should be doing. If you come here, you get this over here because it's complimentary, and then they don't have to build a restaurant in their store. They don't have to build a coffee shop in their store. I know that if I come in, I'm going to date myself here, which might surprise a lot of people. But Weimar, lucky number was like a very exciting moment in my childhood. I don't know if you had to go swing by Weimar to find out what the lucky number was every week.
I missed that, actually.
Oh my goodness.
Weimar.
It was my favorite thing as a child. Every single time I was with my grandmother, it was just like, it's lucky number Tuesday or what. I think it was every Tuesday was lucky number. You had to swing by the store and there was a lucky number. And if it matched a number on your card, you got something. You got this thing for free.
Gamification.
No matter what you were doing,
Bingo.
even if you were leaving the house. Oh, it's lucky number day. We have to go to Bi-Mart.
So it's funny the way Shish just mentioned that. And when you're talking about the feed store experience, that's literally exactly my dad's meat shop in Lodi, California. He knew his customers by name. I mean, by name. He knew that Mrs. Smith always burned. I mean, I this is how I grew up. He knew she always burned a roast. So he would give her unique cooking instructions because he'd back it down. We're trying to build. Shish and all his amazing startups are trying to build my dad.
Yeah.
Through technology.
And your feed store.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking of all the MBAs at all these various department stores, and maybe just go back and look at history, or maybe go back to that feed store and just sit there and kind of look at how do people want now. most people and busy people aren't going to want to spend the kind of time your mom does. By the way, your mom and I are like 100% in sync. The greatest experience on the planet is going to the feed stores for sure.
That's it.
But it's like, what is the unique retail experience? And it's a human experience. And even as we become more and more e-commerce centric, I mean, I hate to tell you, but I loathe when my wife logs into Amazon because she knows exactly what I've been looking at. It's pocket knives. It's really high-end flashlights, which are really great when I'm out like in crazy places at night. She's going like, what the hell? I mean, it's $100 for a flashlight. I go, yeah, but the thing goes at 90 degrees, and it's like, anyway. So our e-commerce experience, our e-commerce experience has gotten amazingly sophisticated and is mirroring the experience that my dad and the feed store provided. So we I guess as an analyst, so I sit here and listen to all you practitioners who are in the battle, and I just get to sit back and go, why don't these department stores do exactly what we're all talking about? And, I mean, that's why it's always much more fun to write about how to do things than it is to actually have to do things.
I think one of the biggest opportunities we have right now, especially with the amount of hybrid workforce, women are in charge of 85% of spending in the United States.
In my case, it's 100%, but
I mean, I really am not
95.
You slip a few in there every now and then.
But it is they don't get a break. It's a struggle to go shopping with kids in tow. And I think looking into our past can create more of those future moments, because going to Weimar on Lucky Number Tuesday is a repeated memory for decades with my grandmother, as is walking into Albertsons and going up and watching them decorate cakes in the window while she does grocery shopping. And I would often, which I don't think they are allowed to do anymore, but I would often get dropped off at the library for story time while they went and did stuff for like 2 or 3 hours. But maybe department stores really taking in, if Nordstrom had a story time that was like an hour on the hour, was like story time where you could go drop your kids for story time and go shop. How fun would that be?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another example. My kids are teenagers, right? So they're on the youngest side of Gen Z or oldest side of Gen Alpha, depending on how you want to define it. But their most feared thing on a weekend is if we dare say we need to go to the mall and shop. And you know why that is? It's because they are so ingrained in their belief that they always want to be prepared and ready to go to the next thing they want to do in the day. And if we say we're going to go shopping, they don't hear those words. They hear, oh my God, we're going to go to 10 different places and it's going to take all day and I'm never going to get to the next thing I want to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So if there was ever a source or a demographic that would love to invent the ideal department store where it's just one place to go when you say you're going to go shopping, they would love it. Because it means you're in, you do what you do, everything is there and available, and you won't be done in a 10th of the time it takes to go to 10 different stores in the mall. Because that's what they don't like.
That was the success story of Sears. That was why
at one point
was successful.
Yeah.
That's why Kmart was successful. They had this model where you can go one destination and get everything accomplished. And they
town only needed Kmart. That was it.
Yeah.
We needed a gas station and post office. That was all we needed.
Yeah.
And Walmart's essentially taking that place now as that one destination.
If you're like my daughter, the answer to any question about needing to go buy something is, let me show you my Amazon cart. Because everything imaginable she could ever want to buy has been saved in an Amazon cart.
Yeah, my kids are relatively the same age, in that Gen Z category, with Gen Alpha, my son. But it's they will provide what they want in the cart and what they're discovering, and just send me a list.
Well, I want you for all again to appreciate the fact that your children have wish lists on Amazon. And just thank your blessings, because my wish list is on a whole bunch of sites that you're not going to.
Yes. So now,
just send money.
Something tells me your wish list is a lot more expensive than my kids' wish list.
Prada, Louis Vuitton.
My Amazon wish list looks like a wedding registry. I mean, it's like cupcake pans and like spatulas and like
espresso makers.
It like literally looks like a wedding registry. I'm like, never going to buy any of this stuff until it comes to the point where I need it, because I haven't had a wedding registry executed yet.
Yeah. Ricardo,
Yeah.
you know when that your kids are going to change and want to shop with you, when that day is going to come?
When's that?
When you drop them off at college and you go to Target, and all of a sudden they're gonna want you there because you know what? They want that credit card there, and that is not going to be a cheap one, man. That is that's the rugs and all that stuff. Holy smokes!
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, when they come back, when they move and they successfully launch and they come back, they still want you to go shopping with them. And by the way, that credit card's still supposed to come out. So you have that to look forward to.
Oh, good.
And by
So
the
much
way,
fun.
when they come back, you love doing that. So that's the only thing I'd say is a positive.
that'll
You
be the
love
thing.
doing that.
Yep. If only there was a department store to
amount.
go to then. Target. Yeah, it'll be Target. It'll be Target.
We're going to have a huge opportunity here, or there's going to be a lot of fallout over the next 2025. We've done a lot of predictions over what the future of retail 2025 has been a major milestone, whether or not it's been a 5-year, 10-year, a 20-year, a 30-year look into the future. We're still not even close to what we thought we would be at. By 2025, this is a major milestone year for retail in general. Regardless of how long you've been in the industry, I feel like we've been working towards this year.
Yeah.
And there could be a lot of fallout, but I think that there's some great opportunities to really bring in these winners. I've seen right now we're in holiday, and I have been enamored by a couple brands that have just nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see them. It's got enough legs to keep going. Don't let it just be holiday. Keeps the polo bear alive. I'm loving it. We're eating it up.
Yep.
I was excited to get my picture taken with the polo bear randomly when I bumped into him last year. Now he's interacted in a window. There's a gift wrapping shopping concierge with the bear. Bergdorf Goodman is doing Lavender Taxi that's doing same-day deliveries and contests. If you tag it, if you see it, you can get lunch. Bloomingdale's launched their holiday windows with Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody do anything with Barbie in retail rather than just brands creating cross collabs? I think that should just keep going.
Agreed.
All these types of interactive moments. In New York, we get the best of the best and we get the best of the worst.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I went to Macy's. I started my career at Macy's, and they were the destination, Herald Square. They had the flower show. They had the Thanksgiving Day parade, the July 4th. They had the holiday shopping season. It was a really magical place. And I think the challenge for Macy's was how do you translate that Herald Square, middle of Manhattan experience everywhere else at scale and execute it to perfection. And that's been the biggest challenge for them, especially as they expanded their across the entire U.S. and acquiring all of those other department stores that have been struggling to repeat that model over and over again.
Yeah. But I think we're really close. I think we have the technology, we have the data. It's just really about putting it together to make something meaningful that has enough time to work and to create that prediction or the long-standing, every single time I go in, I'm getting this. It's an expectation. It's why now I'm choosing one over another. I hated going to Safeway. There was nobody decorating cakes. I pushed towards Albertsons because I had a cake. I want to go to those repetition things rather than it being PR. We get to test something, but we've got to get it out to all doors and really be a sales strategy and a technology initiative rather than a marketing budget. It's going to cost 100 times more.
Yeah.
But it should actually produce long-standing sales and get us some comp metrics that we can continue to build off of, in my opinion.
I'm all for everything Casey's saying. If you look at it from a technology perspective or infrastructure perspective, these Macy's or Nordstrom's or name markets, et cetera, they're saddled with so much technology that's been so outdated, technical debt is called. So 30, 40-year-old systems built for another age, built for the pre-digital age, built for the pre-AI age. That they're not equipped with the technology stack. It's not cloud enabled or ready to go with this immediate satisfaction or just immediacy of experiences. They need to be. And I think that how do you eliminate that technical debt, hundreds of millions of dollars, but free up the capital they need to drive these innovative customer first experience that Casey's talking about? That's the double-edged sword that these department stores deal with. The technical debts and the cost and all that. So,
and
it's
also
have to be all expensive. I just think it needs to be consistent. Make a choice. And let it actually give the time to permeate with customers and get real feedback and believe in it.
I think the challenge there with that too, that a lot of these brands run into is that when they're publicly traded, they are under the pressure of not taking that time that Casey just talked about with customers, knowing that it's an investment for a long-term output, which may say that somewhat the department store that ends up being private is the one that might be, I'm going to qualify that with a might, and I'll explain it in a minute, might be the one that can do this because they don't have to worry about that, except that what ends up happening, of course, is that the department stores that are private end up being bought out by a private equity who has no interest in actually any longevity in retail. They just want to take it apart and extract all the existing value and get their payback from that rather than trying to invest in it to make it a long-term success. I think those are the opposing forces.
It's a very polite way of saying it.
Yeah, I tried. I could say it a very different way.
It's a polite one.
I could say it a very different way, but I'll just sum up these.
I will start collecting like cease and desist letters at some point.
I think all I have to do is say the alternative explanation I can sum up with one word, and that's Sears. As the textbook case of how it doesn't go well.
A lab style strategy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would like to, before we wrap this up, if everybody could just give a super quick, because I know we're pushing time here. What's the most excited thing that you have seen that you would like to see more of
in retail? I assume
really to really think on while everybody's checking out for the next 6 weeks.
And so for me, I think the conversation was very interesting. And one of the things that I've seen and that kind of surfaced from the conversation is, one, I think Ricardo pointed out about the experience online, the marketplace experience that you want to recreate in store or in department stores. But at the same time, I think the conversation also went into an element that I've been seeing, which is we do not want to create the digital experience in store. We want to create a human experience in store. So how do we now bring in all the elements of online, but not the digital? How do we empower people with AI and improve that experience, the personalization and all of that? And to me, I think going forward, it's not about changing the in-store experience to digital, but really empowering the people to better engage. And Jeff pointed out as well, do the store people know you by name and bring that experience into the store as well? And I think that combination of technology enables that. And to me, 2025 is really about that, or should be about that.
Yeah, I go jump in. I think that the most promising thing is Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I think the misconception is they're digital first and they only want to be online on tablets. But they grew up in this world. They don't know a pre-digital world. And they actually, like kids in that generation, want to go to the store, want to experience things. Give me those wow moments. Take me to the Wicked movie and buy me all the merchandise afterwards, Daddy. That kind of thing. So they want, they went all in. And that's the magic formula is how do you get out of this digital ecosystem and how do you attract people to stores when the magic wow moments happen, whether it's merchandising, products, experiences, limited time offers. These are the areas of opportunity that Casey called out. Department stores have to capitalize on this in order to be successful. Otherwise, we'll see just mass store closures and continued disruption in the sector. That's really the purpose, is to attract and to grow those wow moments and be at the center of why you go into the department store or a mall for that matter any longer. So only technology is extremely critical in the back end, but don't replicate it in the front end. She's called out. Empower your store associate, anticipate the customer's needs, and try to provide a good experience as best you can. So a lot of excitement to come.
So for me, the most exciting thing is my favorite grocery store, Rayleigh/Nob Hill. And it's just basically it's a mobile app. It's not that super sophisticated, but when I go in, I have a choice between self-checkout, which I used last night with my wife because the line was long, or also go to the checkers. All of them, every one of them knows my name, because they're about a half a mile from my house. It's a phenomenal experience. I wear my 49er hat, and we either have a little celebration or lately we're having depression. And so what they've finally figured out is they're building an app that allows me to be functional inside the store, and it's amazing. It's everything. They still do the paper circular, and that's there. But why? I mean, I have it right here. And so the fact that they have tier one grocer has figured out, man, let's really bring the tools. Let's let people use them, and let's build a human experience in this amazing grocery store. But yet also have digital capabilities. So there is hope. There is hope for very good retailers to make it well into the 21st century and beyond.
Well, I think that's a wonderful summary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that is the key right there. Is the winner here and the successful, I bring it back to department stores, is the one that's going to find the right combination of technology to layer on in the customer's hands, but not in the way that lets them be totally self-sufficient, but in a way that connects them to the store associates that are there to help them in the first place. And I think the piece that sometimes is missing from that is it's not an either or. I think a lot of these retailers say, I'm building a tool for my store team, or I'm building a tool for my customer, but they don't spell it out as I'm building a tool that brings the two together. Maybe it's the same tool that just has two interfaces to it and two sides to it, right? But that helps make that connection, because I think what Jeff said is exactly right. It's that's what makes it memorable, and that memorableness makes it positive. And it's too easy for retailers to inadvertently create negative experiences, I think, right now, and that keeps people away. And what they need really is to create those positive experiences. And again, I think a department store that thinks this through has the best opportunity to execute that versus anyone else, because they have the potential for the biggest variety of experiences in their store versus other types of retailers and other specialty retailers. So I think that's where the thoughtfulness has to come through, and that's where the right mindset change has to come through to do that.
And they don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
They have great partners. They have great resources together.
That's where they need to leverage their technology partners to help them.
Yeah. Well, Ricardo, I'd say that this episode is a wrap.
Yes, it is. And thanks to our Retail Avengers group for joining us.
If you enjoyed our show, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Good Pods. Remember to smash that subscribe button in your favorite podcast player, or like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss a minute. A big thank you to our amazing Good Pods listeners for helping us consistently stay in the top 3 spots for indie management and indie marketing charts. I'm your co-host, Casey Golden.
Please connect with us and share your feedback on LinkedIn at Retail Razor, or find us on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to preview the best highlights from each episode right in your email inbox, subscribe to our Substack newsletter for full episode transcripts and bonus content. I'm your host, Ricardo Belmar.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep cutting through the clutter and stay sharp. This is the Retail Razor Show.